All right, so good morning, first of all. Hopefully everybody has enough coffee for this presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Today I'm going to talk about the growth mindset and how to evolve your data engineering skills for tomorrow. Essentially, how to continue to be ready for whatever comes your way in the field of data engineering. So who am I? I am a lifetime techie. So I received my first computer when I was 11 or 12. It's been so long ago I don't remember, but I feel like I was born on a computer. Let's just put it that way. And I've had many unique IT roles and experiences. So I've worked for Cornell University developing 3D worlds for kids to learn about Mayan culture and math. I've worked for banks doing backups and making sure all of their data is secure and kept maintained properly. I've also worked for microchip manufacturing companies where I've created microchips for accelerometers that go into Nintendo Wii's and Xbox 360s. I've also kind of, so I've kind of had a lot of experience, right? So I've worked in a lot of different roles, and throughout that process, I've kind of developed my own way of learning, and I've committed myself to just being a lifetime learner because you can never learn enough, right? You can learn your entire life and there's still more to learn. Like there's just an infinite amount of knowledge and wisdom out there. I do have a website that you can visit. It's shehu.com. All my information's there if you want to contact me or reach out. So data engineering is one of those fields where it is definitely a rapid kind of evolution. It's the technology and the methodologies that we have today are not going to be the same tomorrow. It's changing at a rate that is incredibly difficult to follow. Uh, I'm sure all of you have seen on LinkedIn when you're scrolling through, all of a sudden there's all these new apps. Like here's a new one for doing pipelines this way. There's a new one for doing pipelines this way. So it's definitely rapid pace for sure. And data engineers are critical right now, especially in a time where big data and AI is having this expansive growth. So we need to continue to make sure that our skills are where they need to be. And because of this rapid growth, we need to ensure that our skills are where they need to be, but we also need to be ready for what's next. We always need to be thinking, what skills do I need in the future? Not just what do I need today, but what do I need tomorrow? So as part of that, we need we need to develop a growth mindset and think of it as an upgrades for your brain, right? There's kind of this a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. So with a growth mindset, you're always looking to develop, going to that next step, going to that next level. Whereas a fixed mindset, you're just kind of happy with the skills you have, happy where you are, happy with what you know, and you're not really kind of looking towards what's next. And it's important to develop a growth mindset instead of this fixed mindset. Um, and you have to really kind of believe in the development and career advancement process. One of the things we're talking about with the evolving landscape, I wanted to put this up here, and this is really dated, and it's also kind of biased because it's made by a very specific company, but it does give a really good impression of the kind of the craziness of data engineering, right? So inside of our field, we just have tons and tons of different types of systems that we use to get the job done. And these systems are continually growing. I mean, this is from 2020. So this is probably triple, if not quadruple, the amount of things that are on here. And I know that like if we start digging into this and looking at specific ones, we're gonna say, okay, well, Azure should be there or GCP should be there. So there are definitely things missing on this, but this gives a good idea of just kind of the broad scope, right? So as part of that kind of evolving landscape, we've had this emergence of the cloud platforms, AWS, GCP, and Azure. And those have had a huge impact on data engineering, which has also in turn increased the AI and machine learning areas as well. All these fields kind of intersect with each other now. And as AI continues to get the publicity it gets, data engineering in the back end is also going to be kind of coming up with that, because we need hand in hand AI and data engineering. And all big data technologies are really kind of shaping the future of data storage and analysis. It's important to kind of make sure we're keeping an eye on all of these different technologies and understanding how they're changing everything. As part of this kind of growth curve that we're seeing, real-time data processing is becoming more and more reliable, more and more effective. In the past, real-time data processing was just not even feasible. But we're closing that gap more and more as technology advances. And with that real-time data processing, that's going to provide us with more data, more demand for data engineering. So the kind of the impact on our skills as we're kind of continuing to evolve the world of data engineering, we're shifting towards cloud-centric infrastructures like AWS and GCP and Azure. There is a huge need for more proficiency in those cloud services and architectures. And we're continuing to advance our kind of the distributed systems like Spark. That's going to continue to play a big role in everything within data engineering. And all of these things, they continue to add to the importance of AI and machine learning. We really need to start, even as data engineers, we need to start developing AI and machine learning skills. In the future, I do think that AI or data scientists and data engineering, machine learning engineers, I think all these fields, they have a lot of crisscross right now. But I think as we continue to kind of have new software developed and new technologies emerge, those kind of crossovers are going to get bigger, and we're going to start to kind of have roles to kind of merge more closer together. So we do need to kind of be aware of these types of technologies and skills. We also need to make sure that we're familiar with the machine learning frameworks and how we can apply those to data engineering currently. And then as we kind of continue down this path, we're going to start to see more AI-driven projects. If you're not seeing them already, I know that kind of AI is the big hype, right? You hear about it everywhere. It's talked about and everything. I can honestly say I am constantly hearing about projects that involve AI, and as a data engineer, you get pulled into those conversations. So we need to kind of develop that critical thinking and problem solving for those types of projects and be ready for those. So there's a huge impact to this constant evolution. From the traditional ETL processes to real-time data streaming and processing. Traditionally we had the on-prem ETL processes that were significantly slower and cumbersome, and now we're kind of moving more towards this cloud environment where you can kind of stand up systems that are able to run real-time data processing and quite a bit faster. Another kind of advantage to this evolution is that we're increasing our collaboration between groups. And again, that's kind of where those roles are starting to kind of get a little fuzzy, where we are collaborating more, but we're also kind of developing kind of unique skill sets based on kind of the collaboration with the other teams. So there's a lot more collaboration with data scientists and analysts. And we're seeing a lot more evolution in the for the backend support from a business perspective, right? Businesses are starting to realize, not starting to realize, they're fully aware now, I think, at this point, of how important data is, and data has really become more centric in business decisions. So there's a big push for that data to be cleaned and perfect and usable. So, we talked about the evolution of data engineering and kind of the direction that things are going in, but what exactly is the growth mindset? So when we're talking about growth mindset, we're referring to that kind of that fixed state versus the developed intelligence and abilities. So there is this kind of concept. For example, I have a 2-year-old toddler, right? And when I look at her, I go, oh man, she's gonna be super intelligent. She's putting these blocks together in a way like, oh, crazy. But here's the thing. That's where you're kind of making an assumption based on a fixed state. Like, I'm looking at her skills and talents as they are right now and assuming that she's going to be intelligent and have abilities in the future. Now, the growth mindset is the idea that you can develop intelligence and abilities without having necessarily a fixed state. As long as you are willing to put in the effort, you're willing to grow, you're willing to learn, you're willing to educate yourself and try to improve, there isn't a fixed state anymore. So when applying a growth mindset, what are kind of some challenges? Well, one, we need to make sure that with challenges, we are embracing these challenges as opportunities to learn and grow. We need to start seeing every challenge as an opportunity instead of some sort of conflict. So we need to kind of change our perspective on that. And the other thing we need to accept that there will be setbacks and there will be failures, but we need to embrace those setbacks and failures as a way to move forward and grow as well, because we can learn from those, and we need to make sure that we are learning from those, right? We can't just have something fall apart and break and say, well, we'll figure it out later, or we'll fix it, and I don't know how we fixed it, but it's fine, and just move on. No, we've got to kind of tear apart those failures and grow from them, make sure that we are. And then we have to start viewing effort as a way to get to mastery of a subject and achievement. So instead of, we have to start accepting, like, going out of our way to research and learn and understand new concepts and things as a pathway to becoming a master in that particular area. So how do we work with feedback when we're applying a growth mindset? We have to make sure that we're learning from our criticisms and our feedback to improve our skills. We have to make sure that we're documenting and we're collecting all of those criticisms and feedback and accepting them for what they are as tools to learn and develop ourselves even further. We also need to make sure that we're open to new perspectives and ways of thinking. And I will kind of talk about that a little bit more on the next few slides. We need to make sure that we're using that feedback as a guide to help us develop our skill sets. So this is an interesting one. When we're talking about the success of others, we need to make sure that we're learning from the success of others, right? Sometimes we get caught up in the details of, if somebody else is successful, I'm not necessarily being successful, but that's not the case. We need to embrace other people's success, because it is not a zero-sum scenario. If somebody else is successful, that doesn't mean that we are not successful and that we're not getting a benefit from their success. So we can use that and as a collaborating and sharing knowledge opportunity to be able to grow. So as kind of part of this growth mindset, we need to make sure we're kind of adopting a continuous learning framework where we're using a structured approach to our skill development. We need to make sure we're setting clear objectives and milestones. And a great tool for doing this is definitely using AI to incorporate some of these concepts and tools, right? So if you're, I mean, most of us by now are familiar with ChatGPT or Google's version, or even the Bing version. But anyways, so we can take these new tools and we can use them to kind of create our own personal coaches to help us create a structured skill development plan. So a couple different scenarios with that, you can actually use, for example, ChatGPT. You can give it a request to have it create a quiz and have it test your skills, and then have it provide feedback based on your responses to that quiz, and kind of develop a learning plan. So this is a strategy that is kind of a cheaper strategy than hiring a coach or a mentor or going out and doing a boot camp, for example. And I think this strategy works really well for people that want to be able to create a structured approach without having to spend a small fortune on those types of tools. So I think at this point, a lot of us have come across different kinds of learning platforms like Coursera, Udemy, Pluralsight. These are all great. They're great tools for people that kind of have that visual need for learning, and they work pretty well for those types of visual scenarios. And then there are specific courses provided by vendors as well. So a lot of times the vendors will provide free resources for learning. Um, so one thing I do want to talk about was the certifications. We put a very large emphasis on certifications in our field, but I think that with certifications, they are really good for getting you in the door to a particular job. But at that point, we have to be conscious that we could spend an eternity learning every possible certification. And we may have no returns on our investment when we start kind of just collecting certifications like trophies. So we've got to be careful with certifications, but I do think they have a place and they do have value. So they are important for data engineering. And as some of those certifications are very vendor specific. So if we're talking like Microsoft Azure or Databricks, even Snowflake has their own certification setup. Those vendors, they want you to get those certifications, right? So they're going to give you as much resources as possible to succeed while learning the material to get those certifications. They don't want to make it impossible for people to become certified. There's pros and cons there. The pro is that you can kind of grab as many certifications as you want pretty quickly. The con there is that do you really know the material? So certifications are good, but they need to coincide with other learning resources. You can't just rely on those alone. I do think that community engagement is a great method for developing skills and kind of continuing to learn. So there's lots of forums out there like Stack Overflow, Reddit. There's even specialized communities, like there's a Databricks community that's pretty good. And reaching out to people and kind of creating that communication network is going to have a benefit long term on your ability to kind of grow and continue to use the growth mindset to develop your skills. And as part of that, you'll hear about different workshops, webinars, and conferences. You'll hear about that a lot on those forums as well. But these are also pretty decent tools if you can get to them. Usually there's costs associated with a lot of these, so sometimes they're not as approachable. But local user groups and meetups are usually they don't have a cost. So it's great to get involved with local user groups and meetups in your area, especially for things like out here in Indianapolis, they have a coding coffee type of meetup where everybody goes to a coffee shop and we just kind of talk shop and drink coffee and work at the same time. So it's a great opportunity to meet others that are doing similar things in the field and be able to develop those connections with them. And that kind of brings me into the power of community. Community is a huge benefit when you're trying to learn new skills and talents. So leverage your network. Make sure that you are networking and creating a catalyst for growth opportunities. As data engineers, we kind of shy away from the soft skills, but we really need to embrace those more and kind of jump into those opportunities to try to get that ability to have that strong community to be able to reach out to. There's a lot of benefits. Sharing knowledge is only one kind of benefit from that type of scenario, but we really need to focus on building those professional relationships, especially within the data engineering field. And the thing to keep in mind is that most of us want to help each other. We kind of have this natural human instinct to desire to see other people succeed and try to help other people. It's just kind of something that comes natural for most people. So leveraging your community is definitely a helpful way to kind of do that. Now, in regards to that, it's also important to share knowledge to your communities so that you're adding value as well. So part of that, you can contribute to open source projects. That's a great way to collaborate with others and be able to work through different types of scenarios that you may not see on a normal basis. So as you're working in your normal day-to-day job, you may have set routines and set kind of processes for developing different sorts of projects. But the thing is that you might not be exposed to the uniqueness of being able to see different kind of strategies and mindsets unless you start working with open source projects or working outside of that scenario. Another great way to share knowledge is to kind of start a blog and start writing articles to share the knowledge and experiences that you have, so that you're able to kind of reach out to other people and provide them with new knowledge. And then, of course, there's presenting at meetups and conferences or New Stars of Data. It's a good example. So this is a great way to share knowledge and create connections with others and be able to kind of help with that knowledge sharing aspect. One thing that is really important when you're kind of working through these types of knowledge sharing scenarios, you want to start to establish your own personal brand. So we have to start thinking about ourselves in terms of marketing, right? So people that do marketing get paid a fortune to do marketing. And we need to kind of adapt some of their strategies to ensure that we are presenting ourselves in a way that we're marketable. And this is going to help. So writing blogs, articles, sharing insights, contributing to open source projects, presenting at meetups, any of these types of scenarios where you're getting out in front of people, where you're starting to communicate, where you're starting to establish connections, this will help develop that brand so that you are known as the data engineer or the expert in Spark, the expert in data, whatever it may be. That it's important to make sure that we think about this from a marketing perspective. So when we're learning from a community, there's lots of advantages. It really kind of helps us get new perspectives and new ideas that we wouldn't normally develop. And that goes for both internal and external. Like if you create kind of connections within your work community, you're going to get a very specific set of knowledge and ideas from that community. And that's really helpful but you also want to expand your community to outside of work as well, so that you can also get new perspectives and ideas that you may not have be able to get internally. So as part of that, it's important to try to stay up to date with the industry trends and best practices. Now, I know if your LinkedIn is like mine, you're getting spammed with like the new trends and new best practices, and it's all over the place. So it may not be possible to know every little detail, right? But kind of just having a cursory knowledge and trying to, or just observing things as they come in to try to keep that up with things the best you can is what we can do. And again, that kind of goes back to that evolving landscape of today is not going to be the same as tomorrow. It's going to be very difficult to keep up with every single detail. And when we're talking about learning from community, that's where we can start to kind of discuss like looking for mentors and role models. Mentors and role models are definitely two very different things. Usually when you're looking for a mentor, at least from what I've seen, there is a significant charge usually for finding a mentor. But role models, we can kind of look at that from a different perspective, right? We can go on LinkedIn and find somebody that we consider to be a role model and reach out to them and try to develop a connection and kind of have a conversation with them to see how they got where they got and kind of learn and glean some knowledge from them. And that may be a better option. And it's definitely a more affordable option than trying to pay for some sort of mentorship type program. And another kind of aspect of learning is when we're we need to focus on engagement and collaboration, right? So we talked about doing open source projects, but there's also hackathons. There's all sorts of different types of projects out there that can be utilized as a learning tool. And these projects are great, especially the hackathons. When there's kind of a competition aspect, it significantly increases, for at least for me, and I think the majority of people, increases your desire to learn because you want to be kind of at that top level, right? So that competitiveness will help you develop skills and talents. And then, of course, participating in discussion groups and forums and mentorships. Again, the other aspect of mentorships is being a mentee. So maybe you're at that stage in your career where you feel like you've gained significant knowledge and you're able to share that knowledge. So maybe consider becoming a mentor and kind of reaching out to others to help them grow. Because again, in helping others grow will help you as well. It's a mutual beneficial kind of relationship. So how do we kind of apply some of these skills? So when we're talking about kind of data engineering skills, the practical experience in mastering data engineering, in my opinion, is going to be significantly more important than the theoretical. We have to kind of balance the two because theoretical knowledge is important. Knowing how to apply things to real world applications using theory is beneficial, but the practical knowledge is going to give you the actionable items that you're able to actually kind of create solutions for. And with this, project-based learning is in my opinion, a better tool than video learning. But again, it depends on your perspective of how you learn. So project-based learning is going to give you that real-world hands-on knowledge where watching a video, you may have the theory down, you may understand kind of the process, but you haven't actually done it, so you can't necessarily replicate it as easily. Whereas the project, you're going to run into problems, you're going to run into issues, things are going to break, things are not going to go well, but those are all learning opportunities that you can use in the future. And that kind of goes into side projects, right? So side projects are great. So if you, and I know all of us are kind of short on time, right? Time is a tricky thing, but if you're able to initially create personal projects on the side to kind of develop your skills, this is really going to help you learn how to solve those real world problems. And it lets you have the opportunity to explore new technologies and methodologies that you don't necessarily have the opportunity to do during your day to day. For example, if you work with Azure every day and Azure is all you do, maybe you want to do a project for AWS just so that you have that knowledge of how AWS works and be able to kind of say, okay, I've built something in AWS. I can understand it. I can conceptualize it. So that's where side projects really kind of come into play. And side projects are great because you're able to demonstrate more creativity and initiative. So the other thing with side projects, you're able to expand your projects and your portfolio based on ideas and kind of interesting concepts that you come up with, right? You're not as restricted as you are in a collaborative project or a open source type project. With a side project, you can take one of your personal ideas and develop it and grow it into something. And kind of along the lines of that, you mentioned open source projects. Open source projects are great to understand kind of the practical challenges. They're also great for collaborating with other people and kind of other people's experiences. So you may get some new ideas and concepts from others that you wouldn't normally have working on a project solo. So there's opportunity there as well. And when you're contributing to an open source project, you're not just you're not just working on a project, you're actually enhancing your portfolio and you're contributing to the community, which is great because that helps you establish that kind of brand that we talked about earlier. So there's also the hands-on opportunities aspect. There's always internships, there's always volunteer opportunities available. It's just a time commitment type of thing. Internships and volunteer opportunities typically are going to take up a lot of time, but they are a great way to get some more hands-on experience from others in kind of senior roles. And again, just mentioning that the coding competitions and hackathons are both great options for hands-on experience. And especially if you have that competitive streak, that's a great way to go about it. And then the freelance projects, which is very similar to open source, but basically the same thing. You're able to develop a diverse level of experience. It's not just kind of catered towards one tool or specific need. So as part of kind of this learning mindset, it is important to stay agile. I know we've all heard agile. It's probably been beaten to our brains enough that we're all familiar with it, but we can apply that to our learning setup. We need to make sure that we're adopting a flexible learning and working styles. We need to ensure that we're being open to new technology and methodologies. Basically, when we see something that's coming across as something being new, we can't just kind of shut down and say, no, we're not going to touch that. That's not something we're going to work with. We have to be flexible and make sure that we're looking into these opportunities and seeing them for what they are. They are opportunities. And these opportunities may be preparing for future trends and technology advancements as well. So when a new technology comes across their plate, some of them, they're going to come and go, right? Some things fade and some things will stick around. So it's good to make sure that we're trying to prepare for future trends and technology advancements by looking at all these new technologies and methodologies. So how do we future-proof our career? We have to make sure we adopt continuous learning as a career strategy. We can't develop kind of an idle strategy where we just accept everything and we need to make sure that we're continuously developing our skills. We need to try to anticipate industry trends and align our skills accordingly. Azure is definitely kind of one of the biggest cloud services out there right now, but that doesn't mean that there won't be a shift to AWS or even GCP. So we kind of have to make sure that we're watching those types of scenarios and we're adapting our skills to make sure that we are aligning ourselves for whatever comes our way. And as part of that, you're essentially building a resilient and adaptable profile. So in summary, kind of talking about our key points here. The importance of a growth mindset in data engineering. That is critical that we continue to try to expand our skills and try to adapt to new and emerging technologies. It's critical that we accept that we need to, that this is not a field where you can learn everything and sit back and be comfortable in knowing that you know everything, because that is never going to be the case. This is one of those, data engineering is a field where, again, everything is changing. Today is not going to be the same as tomorrow. We need to make sure that we are okay with that. We develop the idea, the concept that we are going to continually grow. As part of that, we need to implement strategies for continuously learning and continuously developing our skills. And that is really kind of those different aspects where we can work on, we can develop our soft skills, where we're reaching out to communities, we are doing presentations, we are working on open source projects, we are working on side projects. It's important to kind of implement these types of strategies to continue that development cycle so that your skills don't get stale. And again, it is critical to leverage your community. So I know I mentioned that before, but it's really important to work on things like your LinkedIn profile, and be able to develop that brand so that people can see you for the skills that you're working on, for the skills that you know and knowledge you have. It's also important to make sure that you are getting that practical experience by working through those projects for growth. So I have kind of an assignment for all of you. I ask that you all embrace the growth mindset and commit to a mindset of continuous learning. And I want to ask that you also try your best to engage with the community and share your knowledge. As data engineers, we need to continue to share and grow together to develop our skills. And I ask that you seek out hands-on experience to apply and enhance your skills. So I went a little quick on this, but that does give us time for lots of questions. So hopefully you guys have some great questions for me. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up.